Welcome to the Legalpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Sager, founder and CEO of Legalpreneur Inc. As a serial entrepreneur and someone that works exclusively with small business owners legally protecting their business, I'm dedicated to covering common legal issues faced by business owners, providing you with the business knowledge you need to catapult your business's growth and showing you just how some of the world's most elite entrepreneurs have handled these legal and business issues themselves. In true attorney fashion, the information in this episode is not legal advice. This is for informational purposes only, and you should always consult with your attorney before implementing any of the information in the show. Legalpreneur Live, you guys, we have a special offer for the rest of the month of June. 50% off of general and VIP tickets. Plus, you guys, so many people are like, what's the number one draw? And besides the fact that we have Allie Webb, founder of Dry Bar, Danielle Canty, co-founder of Boss Babe, and Pollyanna Reed, and so many other speakers, you guys, free childcare. And we just started really telling people, because I was like, oh, of course it's going to be included. And so many people are blown away by the fact that we're going to have free childcare. I'm like, hey, my kids are coming. I want everybody else to be able to bring their kids. I don't want anybody to not come because they don't know what to do with their children. Hey, I want my kids to see me at work. If you want to bring your kids and let them see you at work, bring them. Let's do this. So use code LPLIVE50, 50% off general and VIP tickets. VIP, so many perks, but number one is the VIP mixer with all of our speakers. And you guys, you're going to get free breakfast, you get lunch, it's all included. Get there, get your ticket. Phoenix, Arizona, October 5th through the 7th. I'll see you there. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Legalpreneur Podcast. Today's guest is a wealth creation expert, Kaitlyn Carlson of Theory Planning Partners. I am so pumped to hear from her because I love talking about money. It is something really deep on my mind lately, going through my divorce and basically being depleted to nothing. I am rebuilding. So I'm excited for Kaitlyn to be here and for you guys to hear from her and learn from her. So Kaitlyn, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Andrea. I've been looking forward to this podcast for probably 2 months now.
Yes, me too. And I know you have changed directions, ideas, so much. So get us started. Give us your background. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I have had to let go of perfectionism in a big way. So my background, let's see, I guess we can go all the way back to the fact that I am a native Bostonian. So I was born in Massachusetts, grew up playing ice hockey, and that took me all the way through college. So I played ice hockey in college, and I always had an interest in finance. My grandfather bought me my first stock when I was 8 years old. It was one share of Disney.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome.
And I remember him saying that one share would make money. And I said to him, how will I make money if I'm not working? And he said, well, and so that whole idea of your money making money for you was planted in my mind pretty early. But at the time, I was really disappointed that I didn't get something tangible for my birthday. So it's funny how at the time, my grandfather probably didn't know whether it landed with me or not. But lo and behold, it definitely did. It stuck with me, and through compound interest is worth a lot more than $38 now. So that planted the seed in my head for an interest in finance. And my dad was also in finance. I saw myself going into that field, but when I got to college, I thought I was going to major in econ, but I ended up being far more fascinated by psychology. And so I majored in psychology. And shortly after college, I went right into the finance field. And so I started in asset management with a mutual fund company called Putnam Investments. And Putnam sold mutual funds through financial advisors. And so I learned what financial advisors did, and financial advisors work with families, individuals, and business owners to essentially manage their money. When I learned about that potential career path, I thought, what a great combination between my interest in finance and my interest in psychology, because as we all know, money is far more emotional than it may appear at first. So yeah, once I learned what financial advisors did, I kind of had my eye on switching from asset management, which is one small sleeve within finance, into wealth management. And my husband was offered a job opportunity to move down to Louisiana. And so when we made that move, we actually started at the same company. And when we made that move, I switched from asset management into wealth management. And so I went into a 2-year program. It was called the Wealth Planning Analyst Program with UBS Financial Services. And I was very intentional about choosing UBS. They were a highly reputable firm. They were the largest wealth management firm in the world, and they capped the amount of advisors they had at 7,000. So I liked that there was a bit of exclusivity to it, and I knew I was going to get a high caliber education there. And the thing that really pulled me in was they were going to pay for my CFP, my Certified Financial Planning designation. And that it was very important to me to get as much education as I could while I was learning on the job. And so in that role as a planner, I worked with over 300 clients. Many of them were small business owners. I covered 4 states by myself. So Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama, which as a girl from the Northeast, you can imagine that was just quite an education in and of itself. I definitely understand that there are like multiple countries in one country. And so, but I love, like, business owners really stood out to me as just a fun group to work with. And so I did that for 2 years, and then I myself ended up becoming an advisor. And that's when I moved more into the private wealth world. So I ended up working with the 1% of the 1% and got exposed to pretty much the wealthiest families in America and what they do with their money and how they protect it and sustain it. And also the mistakes that they make too.
Oh gosh. I would love to have like a whole nother episode just hearing about like horror stories, but also like the exciting stuff.
Yeah, I know we should have started like amongst the planners and advisors, like a gossip column or something, because the stories
Yes.
are endless.
Oh my gosh, that would have been epic.
Yeah. So yeah, that really fueled my passion for working with business owners. Unfortunately, while I was at UBS, I had to deal with a lot of sexual harassment, and that was exhausting. I was sexually harassed my very first week there by a
Oh
68-year-old
my
advisor.
gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
It's part of my story. I ended up filing 6 sexual harassment claims in 3 years, and it was just an exhausting. It became like a second job. So I had to. That was a big part of me leaving UBS. Certainly a part of me getting out of the South. I just couldn't do it there anymore. So we moved back up to the Northeast. I joined a private wealth team up here for a short period of time, but honestly, with all the experiences I had been through there, it was just too toxic for me to stay. I ended up leaving and co-founding a firm with a former colleague. That's when I got my SEPA designation, my Certified Exit Planning Advisor designation. But again, the majority of people that were exiting their businesses were middle-aged men, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was so sick of prospecting middle-aged men. So after a lot of reflection and my husband pointing out to me that I really should just follow what I'm passionate about, I realized that female entrepreneurs were really the thing that I was passionate about. And the fact that of those 300 clients, I never worked with a self-made woman. So that was something.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty remarkable when I looked back on it. It's a big driver behind my mission with Theory is women just don't have access to the same network or the same level of advice or the same sophisticated conversations that men do. So Theory's mission is a lot about bringing, the expertise that I learned in the private wealth world to women who are making more money than they've ever made before and want to know how to steward that wealth.
Mm-hmm. So Explain how exactly you work with clients in theory.
Okay, so that's a great question. Well, being an entrepreneur has certainly been a lot of trial and error. One thing that's really different about theory is we do not charge based on assets under management. So,
And can you explain that really quickly for people, like the different structures, and explain exactly charging based on assets under management? I know what it means, but I know I didn't know what that meant for a really long time. And so I know it would be really helpful to get all these explanations for the audience.
yeah, so I found that to be one of the biggest problems with wealth management, particularly when it came to serving business owners. So, the assets under management model is essentially if you have $1 million in liquid assets, meaning that it's essentially in cash, and you give that to me to manage for you, I invest it for you. I charge you typically 1%. So, I would make $10,000 a year off of managing your $1 million. Now, the problem with that is the majority of business owners, 80% or more of their net worth is wrapped up in their business. So they end up getting severely underserved until they have some sort of liquidity event, like selling their business. And I always felt like this, even in the private wealth world, it was like no one really cared about them. And then when there was a hint of an exit, it was like wealth managers were like sharks on bait, like swirling around them. And I just felt like this is so wrong because there are so many wealth building opportunities along the way for entrepreneurs. But because wealth managers don't get paid based on anything other than assets under management, they're not really motivated to care about servicing you to the highest degree or helping you all that much until you have liquidity for them to manage. So when I left the wealth management world, or I guess the corporate world, that was something I was very intentional about, was I wanted to be able to charge a flat fee. And business owners love having the predictability of a flat fee. You know, you build it into your expenses, and I wanted to be able to provide them with the white glove service that I was used to providing these ultra high net worth clients. I mean, it's like counterintuitive in the sense that like all the good secrets and support get reserved for the people that already have the most money. And the people that need access to that sophisticated advice the most are the people that are trying to build that wealth, not the people that already have it. So that was something I was very intentional about. And I'm certainly in the minority of my industry for switching to a flat fee model. And it's just because the assets under management model is so lucrative. And the other thing is, with assets under management, it gets deducted right from your investment account. So the client doesn't see the fee come out. Whereas when you charge a flat fee, we send an invoice every month or every quarter. So you are seeing the fee. So advisors are very reluctant to switch because it's almost like it gets taken out and no one notices. So there's not a big incentive. And it goes up with the market. So if your account grows from 1 million to 1.5 million and I'm charging 1%, now I'd be making 15,000 for not really having to do much versus 10,000. I don't know if the industry will ever change, but it's going to be really hard to get advisors to step off of that model because it's lucrative and truthfully, there's a lot of mystery behind it, and advisors don't hear about clients complaining about that. So,
Yeah, I feel like that's the same with lawyers as far as switching from the hourly model to the flat fee model. I've always done flat fees, and attorneys love the hourly model, even though clients don't. And 100%, there are situations where it does not make sense to do a flat fee model, or it's just not possible. But especially when you're doing transactional work with trademarks or something that is very repetitive, I think it makes a lot of sense to do flat fees. So
I love flat fee because the hourly honestly gives me anxiety.
yeah, like you want to have a conversation with your attorney and it's like, oh my gosh, how much is this conversation costing me?
Yes, like you're not even paying attention because you're like, what, how many minutes have gone by?
Exactly. Yeah, that's all you're worried about. And with flat fees, it's like, okay, you don't have to worry about that. Like it's all included. Yeah.
Right.
I'm a huge proponent of flat fees, and I think it's very similar to you doing flat fees versus assets under management.
Well, to answer your original question, so in addition to the flat fee model, the other thing that makes us very unique is we work exclusively with female entrepreneurs. And typically, when you're going to need us is when you are starting to make more money than you've ever made before. And what we do that's different is we take a holistic approach to your balance sheet as a business owner. And by that, I mean, when I'm looking at your net worth as a business owner, your business is likely going to be the largest line item on your net worth statement. So it's incredibly important to me and to everyone at Theory that we're optimizing the value of that business. And that was something else that was never done in the wealth management world. The business was largely ignored on the balance sheet, but we take a very vested interest in making sure that the company is running as financially healthy as possible. Because if you're optimizing the value of your company, you're then optimizing the value of your net worth. And then not only optimizing the value of their business, but are there other wealth building opportunities outside of the business that we can be taking advantage of? So we work around the periphery as well to make sure that we're maximizing retirement accounts, or I'm sure this is big in your world, Andrea, but asset protection. If you're starting to build a really valuable company, then that's when we need to start bringing in like estate planning attorneys and making sure, okay, you've built this really valuable business. Now, how do we protect it? And if you're good, then you think about that from day one. So that's why we need you.
Yeah. Yes, no, I love that. Always protect your assets, especially your intellectual property. That's probably your business's most valuable asset. That's what I like to tell a lot of people. Um,
Absolutely. I've seen it firsthand in valuations. It's so true.
yeah, yeah. So if somebody, let's say a female entrepreneur just starts rolling in the dough, most money they've ever made, they have no idea what to even begin doing. What's the first step? Even if they're like, I don't even know if I'm at the point to hire a wealth manager. Like what do they do?
I think that's one of the most common myths or mistakes. So we also don't have any sort of asset minimum. It's more about once you start having that thought in your mind, it means you should start taking action on this. And so we help female entrepreneurs build out their financial team. I call it their success team. So your success team should, and this is something that I've learned over the last 2 years, is typically an outsourced CFO or CFO will be integral to the success of your company. So what I'm finding is incredibly valuable is having someone do evaluation on the business, having an outsourced CFO or some type of financial strategist, because most people that start businesses are more of the visionaries than the CFO type role. But you need that information and that strategy to make educated decisions. So a CFO would be helpful. A CPA, now, all of these people need to be talking and communicating effectively. That's the whole thing. So, getting people on your success team, CFO, CPA, one would be us, so the financial advisor, financial planner, the corporate attorney, potentially estate planning attorney if you're above the estate tax threshold or getting close to it, potentially an insurance person to make sure that you're protected, both business insurance and life insurance, disability, and then like home and auto, that kind of stuff. We're looking at the entire picture. So we're kind of like quarterbacking this process and pulling in the people that we need at the time for the task that needs to get done. So that's kind of like your core team. And then if you want to build to sell, eventually you're going to need to have that corporate attorney come back in and potentially even hire an investment banker. And then that's when you might need to add a couple other people, potentially a consultant. We really take that quarterbacking position because business owners have become successful for their zone of genius, and they're not equipped typically they're not equipped to handle the byproduct of their success. So you have a lot of people going to the business owner saying, oh, like, well, do you want to do this? And they're like, I don't know. You're the expert. I thought I hired you for that. And then they're the ones coordinating because they have a financial advisor saying, oh, we'll talk to your CPA about it. And it's like, well, the last thing that a business owner has is time to be the go-between. So we really try to take over that project management role to make sure that everyone is coordinating cohesively and also that it's going towards a larger long-term plan versus making these siloed, potentially short-term decisions.
Yeah. And would you say there's a certain number where it makes sense to, like, if somebody literally has no savings, they have no cash, like, does it still make sense to bring you in or somebody like you in, or should they at least have like money in a 401k or an IRA? Like, where do they get started?
That's a great question. So they don't need to have any savings yet. It's more about where is the revenue of the company going. I would say the one thing that I've discovered, like I mentioned in the past 2 years, is you should be in a position to hire an outsourced CFO and a CPA before me, because those are two people that I need on my team to be able to coordinate with to figure out, what are we doing? Are we setting up a company 401k plan? Are we setting up a solo 401k plan? Like, what's the big plan here? So if you're starting to get into high 6-7 figures and you're starting to think about building out a team, I'm finding that really once you get over into 7 figures is when building out that team makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing is, one new client said this recently. She was like, I feel like I'm about to be holding this together with tape and glue, and I don't want to feel that way. So if you feel like you're holding your financial picture together with tape and glue, then that's a good indication that, I mean, at the very least, start reaching out to these individuals, or feel free to reach out to Theory, because we'll be able to tell you whether it's too early or whether we think it's about time that you should start hiring somebody. Because the really important thing is, regardless of whether you're building a company to sell it or you're building more of a lifestyle brand, you want to have a really solid foundation. And the younger you can do it, the better, because especially when it comes to things like investing, I mean, time is your greatest asset.
Oh yeah, that is something that I've been learning, and I'm trying to get started. Like, for my kids,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Like, time is on your side. Get started as early as possible. So I'm currently working on that with the kids, especially now that my divorce is final. So
Yeah, I love it. I mean, teaching your kids that goes all the way back to my grandfather buying me that share. You know, they're such sponges at that age, probably more than you even realize. And planting those seeds of positive financial habits can make a huge difference.
So I'm very curious about the nuts and bolts of how your grandfather bought this stock when you were 8. So did he buy this? Because E-Trade wasn't around. These online trading platforms weren't around. So I'm genuinely curious. How did he buy it, and like how would you access it today?
So that's a really funny question, because so he bought it in an UTMA account, which is a custodial account for children. And so my dad was the custodian on it and I was the beneficiary. Now, when you turn 18, it's 18 or 21 for UTMAs, I always forget. But by the time that I rolled around to like actually putting it into my own name, I think I was 27 and I think I was married. So this is typically what happens with UTMAs, is like you forget about it and it's way past. Yeah, so he bought it for me in a custodial account. Now, it took forever to try to track the cost basis of it, because it was a physical share and they didn't track cost basis back then. So I have a physical share of Disney that was like in a blue it was in a blue bin in my parents' basement, buried away somewhere. And that's largely how it was for a really long time. It was pretty manual until, mid 2000s. So he bought me that one share and it was on a dividend reinvestment plan. So the dividends that I would get from that share would then go towards buying more shares. And so eventually it turned into, I think, 45 shares. The cost of Disney stock, or the price, I should say, of Disney stock went from $38 to $140. So not only am I buying more shares, but the value of my shares is going up. And so that's what really creates the compound interest. But now, I mean, it is so much easier. Like you can just create a custodial account on Fidelity and it's like a couple clicks of a button, or we clear through Schwab, like you can do it on Schwab too. But yeah, back in the day, it was extremely manual. And when we had to move it from the UTMA account into my own, since I was, an adult, into my own individual brokerage account, it was like this hellish process for 4 months to try to get it all set up. So it's far easier today.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but that is really cool because I remember as a kid when my mom, she would always tell me, she's like, "Oh, I want to start buying you stocks." I'm like, what the hell is this? What do you mean? Like, and I didn't get it. And she actually didn't explain it to me. She didn't explain, like, get your money to work for you. And not saying even if she did, it would have changed. But I just want to get my kids started early. And I want to get that. Because right now I think they see, oh, mommy travels a lot for work. And I want them to realize you don't have to always travel. You don't have to always work to make money.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that was the biggest transition from people often ask me, like, what's a wealthy mindset? And I grew up middle class. So it was like you go to work and you get a paycheck and, a pension, or like you save into a 401k. But especially for business owners, there's such an incredible opportunity to build wealth. And I often saw and say that wealth is built through concentration and preserved through diversification. So, a lot of business owners end up becoming really wealthy, and a lot of their wealth is concentrated in their business. And then when they're able to sell it, then that's really, there's two ways to go about it. Like you can build it to sell, where it's pretty much locked in your business, and then you have a liquidity event and you unlock it. Now, having said that, 80% of businesses that are put up for sale do not sell. So you have to run your company as a best-in-class company to be in that 20% to sell. The other option is you can run more of a lifestyle business where it provides you with a nice lifestyle and good cash flow, but you have to be disciplined about building your financial independence, or your nest egg, away from the company so that you can eventually walk away from the company. That was the biggest mistake that I found business owners made over and over and over again. After working with 300 clients, I think I said it, 4 dozen times, like you haven't saved enough to be able to walk away from this company. And when you're 65, you do not want to be hearing that.
Oh, that's the worst. Oh,
yeah, that's one piece of wisdom I would impart on everyone is, if you're building more of a lifestyle business, even if you're building to sell, you need to start thinking pretty early about how to build financial independence away from the company. And that's where we come in, because we'll tell you what that number is that you need to be reaching for.
Kaitlyn, you are such a wealth of knowledge.
Thanks for that pun, Andrea.
I would sit here all day and just talk to you about this stuff. But I know the listeners are like, okay, I just want to go ahead and just call Kaitlyn. So call Kaitlyn.
Yeah, please feel free.
She will get you started. But before we leave, I ask all my guests the same question. What is your number one business tip? It doesn't have to be even wealth related. Whatever your number one business tip, what is it?
My number one business tip is, I just talked about this, but it's begin with the end in mind. And I know I wish I could think of like a cooler one, but really beginning with the end in mind is so important. And realistically, it might take you a year or two to figure out what that end looks like. But the earlier you can think about what you're building towards, the more successful you'll be.
And I love how you just broke it down as far as, hey, you're going to build to sell or you're going to have a lifestyle business. That's one of the main things you have to have in mind. Like, what is your end goal?
Yes. And I think that is kind of it takes the first year or two to figure out like what's going on here and what am I building towards. The sooner you allow yourself to get that answer, the better. How's that?
Yeah. Kaitlyn, thank you so much. Let the audience know where they can find you online, and we'll put everything in the show notes, you guys. And seriously, reach out to her sooner than later.
Sure. Yeah. So feel free to reach out. My website is theoryplanning.com. And I just fired up my Instagram again, which is at Theory Planning Partners. So feel free to DM me there or reach out on my website. Very accessible.
Perfect. Kaitlyn, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Andrea.
Here at Legalpreneur, we're committed to providing a supportive legal community for all business owners. I know how scary the legal stuff can be. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could share it with a fellow business owner. And quite frankly, it doesn't cost anything to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. Your support helps me reach more listeners, which allows me to support more business owners in their entrepreneurial journey. Have any questions or comments about the show? Feel free to drop me a line on Instagram. I promise I read all of the messages and comments. And if you want to be a guest on the show or know someone that would make a great guest, simply fill out our application form and a team member will reach out if we think it's a good fit. I'll see you in the next episode.